Hi, Primas. I'm Roxy,
And I'm Giselle.
and this is the For Las Primas podcast. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, glad to have you.
Bienvenidas todas. Giselle and I are so excited to create a space where we can talk about our journeys as Latina women. We can have a space to talk about what's going on in the world, how we are taking care of ourselves, limiting beliefs from our upbringing. I mean, you name it, and we'll probably talk about it. First, let's talk a little bit about who you're talking to. So, Giselle, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Giselle, currently residing in Florida. I'm from a Cuban background and grew up with two other sisters, so it was a house full of women. And I'm currently studying my women's health nurse practitioner because I have a big passion for helping women and especially Latina women in this, especially in this day and age, and what's going on in Florida.
And Giselle, you mentioned that you were Cuban. What is it like growing up Cuban?
I'm a first generation Cuban, and I am also the oldest of my two younger sisters. So not only do I feel like you have oldest sibling problems, like where you're just like figuring out the issues for your younger siblings and kind of paving the way, but also tackle on like first generation issues like having to translate for your parents and like not knowing how to navigate like college and FAFSA and all that stuff.
Oh my gosh.
Not knowing that you should not put that you speak another language when you go into school as a child, because I had to be an ESOL all the way through
I did
because
not
we
know
didn't know
that.
that. Yeah.
So you were in
So
ESOL classes?
I was an ESOL like literally till high school.
Oh my gosh. In New
So crazy.
Jersey or in Florida?
In Florida, actually, because probably I'm thinking it was like a public school thing. Because it
Interesting.
was the first time we went to public school was when we moved to Florida.
Oh my
And they're
God.
like, oh, although I did grow up speaking Spanish, but like by the time I was already in school, I was speaking English. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's so interesting. I did not know that. Well, I'm Roxy. I am also first generation Cuban American. I currently work in tech and education technology that focuses on supporting students. I started my career as an educator and I moved into tech probably 4 years after teaching. And I've been there ever since. I'm entering my ninth year of my career in tech.
Wow.
And I know. And it's been good. I mean, there's parts of it that obviously I love. There are parts that are problematic. But I feel really thankful to work for the company that I work for. And I've just, like you talked about, Giselle, like I'm really passionate about helping educators and helping our education system in the US. There's so many gaps, there's so many things that need to be fixed. Working in tech has given me an opportunity to support from a different lens and develop skills that are more aligned with who I am. But yeah, so within my company, I'm like I was the head of our ERG, which is our Latin community within our organization. And
That's
so
cool.
yeah, so it's been really fun taking that on, and I just feel such a strong responsibility to support the women that work under me and that work alongside me. So I'm excited to talk a little bit more about that as we go through our podcast and all the self work that you and I have been doing. I mean, I feel like part of why we wanted to create this space is because Giselle and I send each other voice notes that are in the form of podcasts pretty much about our journey and like healing and talking about like how things are more difficult for women, how things are more difficult for Hispanic people, and just given the climate, it feels good to create a little space here for ourselves to have these conversations with others who might be feeling the same way too.
Totally. It's such a good outlet for us and other people to listen and really be like, oh, I'm not alone in what I'm feeling. And I think it's cool that we all have a background, I mean, like career wise from like the corporate world and then the healthcare system. And it's just, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And Giselle and I actually came together on our journeys when we were young. So we loved the name for las primas because it's ironic. We're not really blood related primas, but we're primas because our moms are best friends. So it's really fun to also think about the space for like the in-betweeners and like what are things that culturally stick with us that we can bring to the podcast as well.
Yeah, because you don't feel like you're 100% American and you don't feel like you're 100% Cuban because you didn't grow up in Cuba. So it's like we're kind of like in this in between. We're a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So our moms are best friends, and which is how we became close, of course. But I think like our healing journey really kind of came from like wanting to break the cycle and the generational trauma that our mothers didn't have the privilege to do because our moms were just like in survival mode. So that's like what triggered me to start my healing journey, and just to think about I don't have any children, my future children, like I don't want them to like the first generation guilt that we have.
Yeah, that's the first generation guilt is so real. Like even the other day I was like messaging you that I had like a catastrophic day and I was like it's okay, there's worse things in the world and you're like no, it's also valid to have your feelings. So I
Yeah.
agree. I mean, my journey really has started probably 10 years ago when I found my yoga practice, but I think more intentionally did happen after I had my son and thinking about how I show up for him and things that trigger me are things that were from my upbringing that, and I'm like, he talks a lot and I used to talk a lot and everybody just used to always be like, cállate, estás hablando mucho, las niñas calladitas más linda,
Mm-hmm.
all these
Yes.
things. Whereas, like with my son, like it does drive you crazy when there's someone talking at you 24/7. But I also want to give him the grace of like, you're a human and you have things to say, and that's okay. So, definitely healing from that. And, like you said, like, I feel like I just remember being born and raised thinking about Cuba a lot at a very young
Mm-hmm.
age. Like in Cuba, we didn't have these things. Your cousin lives in Cuba and you need to eat all your food because kids in Cuba wish they had food and all that
Yes,
stuff.
literally. It's like I feel like, first of all, let me just preface this by saying I don't even remember half of my childhood, and I don't think that like anything traumatic happened. I think I was fine. But what I do remember is that being like, in Cuba, they don't have this, in Cuba, they don't have that. And you're just like, okay, I need to be grateful. But like, feeling like having a child think about that is like already so crazy. Like we should be enjoying our childhood. Why are we sitting here being like, oh, we have it so much better than the kids in Cuba?
Well, I found this like art project that my mom saved. It must have been like second grade. So you're like what, like 7, 8 years old in second grade? And it's like, what do you wish for for
Oh god.
Christmas?
Oh god.
And I'm like, I wish for kids in Cuba to be free.
Oh.
Which, like, of course I wish that, but like, kids are writing, I want toys, I want this. I'm like,
Yeah. You're
you know, which I'm thankful because I think those experiences shaped me. Some of the things that I was taught and learned about, I'm also like eternally grateful because like we could have been born in Cuba and that would have been really, really hard too. Giselle
yeah.
and our moms actually knew each other in Cuba, so I've been childhood friends for many years, and then we all ended up in New Jersey, and then we all ended up in Florida.
And
Orlando.
we did this homework. We were like, we're gonna ask our moms to tell us the story and get this straight. And I don't know about you, but my mom did not deliver.
Did not.
Did
Did not
not deliver.
deliver. Did not. I'm like, I need to know your story. She's like, ¿Y para qué tú quieres eso? And I'm like, we're starting a podcast. ¿Y de qué van a hablar? Yo no entiendo. And I'm like, can
Yeah.
you get
I
the
was like,
story, please?
yeah, yeah. She's like, okay, I'll send it to you. Te lo mando por WhatsApp later, like a week later. I'm like, she's like, yeah, I'll send it. Why do you want that again? A podcast?
Which it's funny talking about our moms and like things that we do that like they definitely didn't do is like we go on girls trips and we prioritize girl trips. Last year we went to Tulum and had an amazing, was it 5 days in Tulum?
Yeah.
Which spearheaded a lot of like different
That
Me.
opened a whole can of worms, that trip. That trip.
Just,
But it was like a necessary, like, you know, when they say the universe, when you're asking the universe for change, they're like, well, we need to destroy like what your current is to like boost you into your change. And that's exactly what happened.
that's exactly what happened.
But it
Our
was
lives,
necessary.
our lives. But yeah, I feel like Tulum is like got a lot of spiritual energy there. Like a lot. Like
Yeah.
a lot of ancient Mayan history, a lot of, I don't know, we did this yoga meditation and I went somewhere else. I don't even know.
Yes. No, I do feel like there is an energy there that you either connect with or you don't. But when you do connect with it, it's that heavy. It's that heavy.
We did tarot cards at the beach and we were burning sage and it was windy. And that sage threw us over the edge. That thing blew so hard. There was so much smoke. All of our cards were like
That's
crying. We're experiencing it. And then we came back to our lives and we were like, whoa, I couldn't go back to what I was doing before and the way I was acting before because I felt like the way I was living was not aligned with like what my higher self was telling me I needed to abide
totally.
by.
Totally. I feel like I didn't even like have any problems. And then I went to Tulum and it was like, yeah, you do. Yeah,
But
you do.
almost a year later, how do you feel?
I feel like it was like like if like that had to happen. It was gonna happen at some point in my life, and it was like, yeah, it had to happen.
There's also something I think like our moms don't go on solo trips together. Like
Hmm.
the husbands have to come and like eso de que una mujer casada está yendo por ahí con sus amigas
That
is
was a
like
whole thing.
it was a whole thing, you know? And so I feel like that's like a big act of rebellion on our end
Hmm.
to even just be like, you know what? Actually, I feel really refreshed when I hang out with my girlfriends. I feel like I connect and like I come back and I'm a better wife, I'm a better mom. Like, I feel like those trips and those moments are so looked down upon by our moms and being like, and what are you going to do there? And like they think we're just like, I don't even know what they
I
think.
don't even know. I don't know. It's like a mentality. I think it happens in just like most Latin communities, but I feel like they're like that. Going on a girls' trip is considered a single act. And because you're married, you can't be doing single acting things. You need to be doing things that are under the marriage category, which is like cleaning your house and taking care of your kids because your husband can't take care of your kids. Like you need to take care of your kids.
Literally. Y el niño with his father, because he helped make the baby. So he's got to help take care of the baby, which I'm thankful. My husband is amazing. But yeah, I agree. It's like once you're married, you have to uphold the patriarchy and be this like
Mm-hmm.
little woman who's like, they raise us to be so strong. They want us to go to college. They want us to get a master's degree. Then you do all these things, and then what? You get married, and then you have to fall into like a patriarchal approach where you're like the main caregiver of your family. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know. That's something I've struggled with in like my job, I was like the breadwinner for many years in my family. And so my job is high demand, it's busy. And so I'm busy with work. Some days I work late. I like work. So I will work. And then I also have to have a clean house. And then I also have to have food and enough food in the fridge. And I also have to be a good wife and be a good mother
Mm-hmm.
and do all of these things that when we think about like starting the journey of like working on myself, I think it was like 1 year post being a mom where I sort of hit this wall and I was like, I cannot do all of these things. This is not sustainable for me. And even though like my parents aren't, they don't even live near me, right? So they don't even really know how I live. But I'm like, if my mom saw this bathroom right now, she would be like, you're disgusting. You know what I mean? And so it's
Yeah.
like things that have stayed with me that I have assumed is how I'm supposed to be, but really it's like this self narrative. It's not even
Mm-hmm.
their critique on me. On the contrary, my parents are very supportive and they're very kind and all these things. It's my own fear of what they're gonna say about
And
the
you know what's like, I have always felt like, like everything I do for my parents. Like the degree that I'm seeking is for my parents. Like this is for my parents, for my parents. But my parents have never said anything like you need to do this to be successful. They're always been like, oh, you just need to be happy. Like whatever you do, you just need to be happy. So like it's crazy that we have like these internal narratives that are just like, oh, you need to like be really grateful for your parents. Oh, first generation guilt.
generation guilt.
Generation
It's
guilt.
so real.
It's
It's so
so
real.
real. But it's like every yeah. Like even like my parents came over this weekend and I was just like when they came into the house, I'm like looking at their reactions. And I was like, yeah, todo está bien aquí. I'm like, thank you. Like I was just like silently seeking her approval of my home. Like, is it clean enough? Like, what is going on?
I know. At what age do people stop seeking their parents' approval? Asking for a friend. Asking for a friend. Well, I'm glad that we like have done our girls trips, that we always like find time. I feel like we're really intentional about like at least once a year like getting
Mm-hmm.
together. Um I'm really excited that we get to go to Bad Bunny this year. That's gonna be
Yeah.
our girls trip.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I feel like the world feels gloomy and it feels dark, but when I think about that trip, it just lights up my life.
You're
Like
like, I can make it.
I don't care if he made this album to like make more money, to appease people again. I don't care why he did it, but like thank you, Benito,
Mm-hmm. We
because
needed it.
it's the joy we needed, for
We
sure. How did your mom react when you told her that we were going to Bad Bunny?
she was like, I can't believe que tú vas para allá para ver ese payaso. I'm like, Mom.
Why do they hate Bad Bunny so
I
much?
even played him in the car this weekend. She's like, is this Bad Bunny? He's like trying to sing salsa and no puede cantar. I was
My
like,
God.
all right, I'll change the song to another Bad Bunny song. What
Uh,
did your mom say?
she's like, tú eres tremenda y tú vas sola. Tú eres tremenda, mira tú. And I'm like, okay. She's like, tú tienes que tener cuidado porque las cosas están candela
Oh
ya.
my gosh.
Everything is candela in every country. Before
But
we,
you know what that's crazy too is like she was like, when I was in Puerto Rico and I was with you when you were cuando tú estabas chiquita así y alguien me dijo, tú eres de aquí, you need to get out, it's not safe. And I was like, Mom, literally what that was like the 90s and you're trying to compare it to right now, like
we went to Puerto Rico together and it was fine.
after that moment.
After
After
the
that moment.
What is your New Year's mantra? Did you make like
Oh,
some
okay.
sort of a
Um,
resolution?
I forgot.
Okay.
I forgot. But I did make a vision board.
Okay. What are some top things?
The top things were like being healthy, eating health cleaner, and like I want to be active at least 30 minutes for 5 days a week. Which is funny because I feel like so I was just hospitalized for a heart condition and my mom was like, I have the same thing, like the same thing happens to me. And I was like, okay, first of all, like why are you just telling me now, right? Like, like why you didn't tell me that before? Like secondly, what'd you do? Like, what did you do about your heart thing? And she's like, I just stopped working out. So I'm like, okay. Like, I feel like our parents, their motto is just like I don't think they take their health as seriously as like we are taking, like our generation is taking our health. So I want
Yeah.
to take my health a little bit more serious this year, which was like my top, on my top, and then um, graduate,
Wait, so
travel.
like going back to your heart condition, you're okay?
Oh, what about you?
I very much lean into this stuff and think a lot about intentionality. So, my new year actually starts on my birthday every year. It's kind of like my source of like renewal. And one thing that was really big for me this year is I want to try to have a non alcoholic year, which I've never done. And alcohol has always been it's been a tough thing for me because we live in such an alcohol obsessed society. I used to drink a lot. I made a lot of very questionable and horrible decisions while drinking. And while I haven't really been like binge drinking in my 30s, really, I just wanted to experiment and kind of see what it would look like for a year. So since November 1st, no alcohol. So that's my big one. And I would say my second one is not seeking validation from others and looking within myself. And so
Those are
far,
two really good ones.
yeah, yeah. I've I gotta stop depending on other people for
Mm-hmm.
to tell me like what my own worth is. I feel like I often put a lot of weight on like how much money am I making or how many things do I have or like focusing on all the wrong things and just like we talked about this actually redefining success and like what
Yeah.
success looks like. Um so yeah, that's the journey.
Yeah, that's good. Especially the no alcohol. I also am starting to do no alcohol in my take my health serious, but which I haven't gone as long as you. I actually just like restarted because I had like 2 beers on Valentine's Day. But
That's okay. There's like no one way to do it too. I feel like.
but I feel like it's very annoying because like you said, we're in a very like alcohol heavy like society. Like people are always questioning you like when you're not drinking. They're like, why aren't you drinking? And then especially because I'm a young female, everybody just assumes that I'm pregnant, which is also like a crazy thing to like assume and ask someone because that's super private. And people are crazy out here and they'll just be like asking. Like you really like also like you think I'm gonna tell you?
People are very much like, "Oh, are you pregnant?" or oh, or assume like you have a problem. And I think I talk a lot, as everyone knows, and so I tend to like over explain why I'm not drinking. And then it's like, oh, good for you. And I'm like, no, no, no. But did you hear? Like, I'm not like an addict, you know? Like, and so I've had to reframe the whole narrative. And I'm like, okay, it's enough to just say, oh, no, thank you. Like, I'm good.
Yeah,
Enough.
like I'm
That's it.
just not.
I'm just not. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying. I'm just
Um,
not.
but do
Unless
you
people push.
notice a difference when you don't drink?
Yeah, I know. Honestly, like, yeah, you're not hungover. You're not. And I'm just like weird. Like, I feel like I don't even like medications. Like when I was recently hospitalized, they had to give me meds and everything, and I was like, I hate this feeling. Like, I hate the way these meds are making me feel, and like I don't smoke weed really or anything like that because I just don't like being medicated. So I kind of like also not being drunk.
Yeah. Yeah. I've noticed like not as much brain fog. I didn't realize how much brain
Yeah,
fog alcohol gives. Even if it's just like a couple drinks here, a couple drinks there, you know, especially like pandemic times. It was like we were just home and just like, oh, I'll have a beer, you know, and then sort of the years following. And now that I
that's
like
true.
haven't been drinking at all, not even like a glass of wine or this and that, I'm like, wow, I can actually think straight all the time. That's interesting.
My parents came to visit right this weekend, and all they do is drink and sit and talk and drink, and I'm like, Jesus, like all the
Like I'm trying to play my Nintendo Switch and chill for a little bit. Can you guys
time.
relax?
I'm like, Dad, you have like all these issues. Like maybe you shouldn't drink. And he's like, algo me va a matar. I'm
Oh.
like, okay, all right.
Oh, they don't take their health as seriously as we do. That's for sure.
Yeah, into chisme y café.
Chisme y café, because we do
We're
love a chisme.
we love a chisme. So grab your cafecito because we're gonna talk about the Amelia Perez drama.
Mm.
There has been the most drama. First of all, Amelia Perez, the movie, has been so controversial because it is a movie about the lawyer is the main character, and she takes on this client who transitions from a man to a woman. Honestly, I didn't even watch the movie because It was
What?
so bad. It was so bad.
Oh my God.
Did you
I
watch it?
loved the movie. Yes.
Wow, controversial.
It's not just like it's not just someone who transitions, but he was like the most dangerous cartel leader in Mexico that transitioned
So
because
this is based on a true story, or
I
not?
don't think so. But
Okay, well, okay, this makes it even more freaking controversial, okay? Like,
also, like based on a true story, would that make it better or not better?
I would be like, okay, at least like this is based on something. Like, this is even based on a true story.
So he transitions into a woman because he has a lot of remorse about like all the people that were murdered, not feeling like he belonged in his body, not feeling like he just had a lot of like I don't know. And I think it also talked about like generational poverty in Latin America too. I think he was raised poor and he sort of like fell into the cartel. Once he transitions into Amelia, into a woman, then she starts this network to help find los desaparecidos and the people who were missing and that were essentially like murdered. And because the male version of him and the cartel knew where so many people were buried, like Emilia Perez was able to be this like hero and saying like I know where we can find more intel into
Tea.
finding los desaparecidos. The movie was weird. There was like
This,
singing.
I feel about the movie is that first of all, it should not have been a musical. Like, make it a movie. Second of all, the director is French. Que tú
Yeah.
te metido? Que tú te metido en esto? You're not even. Second of all, I think the person that would. I mean, third of all, I think the person that the only Mexican in this film was Selena Gomez. Not, I don't want to discount her, but her Spanish was so bad,
Her
girl. Like,
Spanish was
you should
not.
have really like studied that shit better.
I agree. And I do think she had a responsibility to like at least try, and it didn't really come through.
Yeah, she should have
Didn't come
at
through.
least tried.
Yeah.
So I stopped. I didn't even watch the whole thing. I was like,
Okay,
I
but you
can't.
have to watch it.
Okay, I'll try to give it
I
another.
watch it. Okay.
Anyways, that's the controversy behind it right now is that people are talking shit about it because they're like feeling like, why didn't you give if well, I thought this was based on a true story. So people were like, why aren't you giving the Mexican people the opportunity to do this story? Because like it's based in Mexico, it's like that's like the whole thing. And this director, I really can't. John, I'm like so bad, but like his name is John Leguizamo.
Leguizamo.
Yeah, John Leguizamo. I'm a no sabo kid. Okay. He just tweeted saying, "Los españoles no son latino," talking about Carla Sofia Gasson
Mm-hmm.
because I guess she's Spanish.
That is really controversial, actually, because like even when building like the ERG, right? If one of the folks within my company is Spanish, but they don't identify as like Latino.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
it's also complicated. Like I'm always like, do I say Hispano? Do I say
Mm-hmm.
Latino? Do I say, but it is true that like within Latino America, like Spain is not you're not considered a
I mean,
Latino.
I agree with him. I think that there's two different. There's Latinos. There's Hispanics. Yeah, and like, yeah, I agree with him. Although there's a
And
lot
I
of
think that's
controversy with this
part
one.
of like the problem with I can only speak for the Cubans because right, we're Cuban, but like a lot of our great grandparents are from Spain. And so our
Mm-hmm.
families cling to that because the closer you are to Spain, the closer you are to being an American, the closer you are to whiteness. So many Cuban people are out here thinking that they're white, and I'm like, in America, actually, you're brown. And also, like, it's this obsession with the Spanish culture of like being closer to Spain and being European. And like, the closer you are to the Caribbean, then the closer you are to like blackness. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's this like inherent racism that's like taken me a long time to unpack and also like unlearn is like identity politics, who we identify with, why we identify with, and that's its own.
That's a whole. I was just gonna say that's a whole other episode because it's like the whole question like, well, where are you from? And you're
Yeah.
like, well, what do you want to know when you
Yeah.
ask me that question?
Another part of the controversy is that Carla Sofia Gascon also had written some tweets about Selena Gomez
Oh.
like a long time ago. And so those recently came out, and then she was like, "Oh, I feel so sorry about what I said." And Selena's like, actually the movie has lost its magic for me now."
I know her tweets
Está un
came out.
poquito confundida.
She's a little confused.
Está
Yeah,
confundida
so
about who she is and where she came from.
yeah, she is. She is.
Yeah, which like makes sense. And when we talk about like, okay, we want to leave the US, we want to go live in a Latin American country or Spanish speaking country. And I think about like, wow, Spain would be so great. It's such a great place. It's so beautiful. I've visited, I've loved it. I'm also like, isn't it the same problem of like racism that we experience here that we would experience there? Like, is that really getting away from?
Yeah.
Anyway, a lot to unpack and talk about there, but that is really good tea. I feel like there's really interesting tea about movies right now because, like, we won't get into it, but we know the Blake and Justin.
That is like my shit right now.
I know.
Every new update, I'm like,
Giselle sends me the lawsuits. She's read them. She's like, I'm
reading
just
the lawsuits.
reading the lawsuit. I'm like, oh, can you spark note it for me? What are the
Because
highlights?
I'm like, Chismes on 101, okay? We want to see the receipts. I want to see the text. I want to see the screenshots myself. I don't want to hear it from someone else.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's a whole thing.
Well, that is all the time that we have for today. Primas, we are so excited to have this space. We're so excited to have this time with everyone. We would love to hear about your journey.
Yes, tell us about your healing journey.
What does
Write in
it
our
look
comments,
like?
DM us.
DM us, let us know. We are on Instagram, and we will be back every 2 weeks with a new episode for you all. So, hasta pronto, nos vemos y cuídense mucho, las queremos.
Bye.
Bye.